Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Hello.
So, I feel like there's this vast desert right here. Is everybody doing that intentionally because it's Pesach?
Residual COVID reticence.
It's somebody is brave.
Maybe that a whole bunch of freedmans.
So Shabbat Shalom. Wow, is anybody here tonight? Shabbat Shalom. Toda Rabah. It's good to see you. Chag Sameach. I hope that you are enjoying Pesach. I hope that you are eating your fill of matzah and haroset. I hope you're spending time with family. I'm glad that you're here. This is our family of sorts. And as we welcome in Shabbat, and we welcome in each other, we remember how wonderful and how good it is to come together, to sit together, to pray together, to share this moment together. Hine ma tov u'manayim Shabbat achim gam yachad. 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 Before we welcome the Sabbath bride, let's take a moment and welcome each other. Feel free to get up and greet each other. Say hello to somebody you haven't met before, perhaps.
Someone you've
I do have to admit that when I leave the Bima, it's very hard to make my way back up here because I wanted to say hello
She
to
loves
everybody.
you.
What?
You love them.
I do. We will continue our service welcoming the Sabbath bride with L'Chadodi on page 138, and we will sing verses 1, 2, 5. L'Chadodi, Likrat Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat V'Kabbalah. 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 Shamor v'zachor b'dikur echad, Ishmi'anu echad Adonai echad, U'shemot echad, U'shemot tiferet v'likra L'Chadodi, Likrat Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat V'Kabbalah. L'Chadodi, Likrat Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat V'Kabbalah. Likrat Shabbat T'kum Elecha, Mihi Mikor HaBaraka, L'Rosh Miketef Nesucha, Sokma Aset Machshavat Tfilah L'Chadodi, Likrat Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat V'Kabbalah. L'Chadodi, Likrat Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat V'Kabbalah. Torati, Mivahoret, Kumiori, Urikumi, Shindameri, Kod Adonai Alayich, L'Chadodi, Likrat Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat V'Kabbalah. L'Chadodi, Likrat Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat V'Kabbalah.
Oi v'shalom, ateret ba'ala, am b'simcha, u'tzehola, doch emunei, am segula, boi kala, L'Chadodi,
Likrat Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat V'Kabbalah. L'Chadodi, Likrat Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat V'Kabbalah. Please be seated. Now, Rabbi Alfie couldn't be here tonight, and Rabbi Alfie and I joke a lot about the job at services. The job at services is twofold. One, to announce the patient. Two, to clap. My hands are busy. I can't do that. It's Shabbat. It's meant to be joyous. Feel free to create that environment here. Okay? And she has a
but only clap on 2 and 4, not on 3. Really messes up our heads.
This crowd always claps on one.
Ah,
You know, whatever you need
reform.
to do. You can even clap on the half beat. It'll be fine. So truly, Rabbi Alfie said to say Shabbat Shalom. She misses seeing everybody. She will be back next week. So we come to lighting the candles. We talked earlier about the week of being with family and celebrating holiday. And this is being with family. I love that we light candles. And we do the home blessings here at Christmas season. I would like to invite tonight to lead us in the candle blessings anyone who has ever led this. As we continue with the candle blessings, Shalom Aleichem, which is on page 142. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hashem, Malachei Elyon, Malachei Allah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Seichen L'Shalom, Malachei Hashem, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Amlach, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Amen. Barchuni l'shalom, Malachei Hashem, Malachei Elyon, Malachei Amlach, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Seitchem l'shalom, Malachei Hashem, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Amlach, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We continue with the Baruch Hu on page 146. Please rise. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Please be seated. We continue on page 149. The Ma'ariv Aravim and then the Yotzer Or in the morning are both prayers that remind us of God's greatness in creating the universe, in creating all that is within. The days change into night, the light comes, the light leaves, and all that exists within it. The seasons change. And it's beautiful to think that this night we change seasons. When we come to the Amidah, to the central tefillah prayer where we stand, we change from winter to summer. There's two seasons, the wet season and the dry season. So as we say the Ma'ariv tonight, keep that in mind. Page 149. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim.
Ahava olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta, Amcha ahavta. Torah to mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpati, Otanu limadta, Otanu limadta. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu Shabbeinu Nasiach bekukecha Venizma b'divrei Toratecha u'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed ki hem chayenu ve'orei yameinu uvahem nege yomam v'layla nege yomam v'layla ve'ahavat cha'al tasir mimenu le'olamim Baruch atah Adonai Ohei Amo Yisrael Ohei Amo Yisrael. Amen. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu,
Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu,
Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto,
Le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto,
Le'olam
va'ed. We continue on page 154. Ve'avta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha b'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. Amen. When we come to the Geulah, when we come to the moment before the Michamocha, it is as though we are standing ready to leave Egypt. And we leave Egypt at every service. Every service. That is central to who we are. Sometimes I think we're more concerned about what melody we're going to sing the Michamocha. Yeah, it makes some sense, right? Then what we're doing. Every service we leave Egypt. Every service we stand on the parted shores of history. Every service we still believe what we were taught before we even stood at Sinai. Every service we remember that everywhere we go it is eternally Egypt, and that there is a better place, there is a promised land, and that the winding way to that promised land has to pass through a wilderness. We remember every service that the only way to get from here to there is by joining hands, heading out together, and daring to go into that wilderness.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילו עושה פלא, נורא תהילו עושה פלא. מלכותך ראו בניך, חוקי הים לפני משה ומרים, זה אליענו ואמרו, אדוני לא לעולם בהן. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
The service is a guide. It takes us from one moment to the next. It takes us from crossing the sea to the Hashkivenu, to a moment of asking for shelter, asking for peace. We often refer to those who don't have shelter at this time. We reference how grateful we are to have a home to go back to have the safety, the security of community and friends. I'm always struck by the brilliance of this guided service, especially at a moment like this, while we're in Passover, while we just have made our exodus from Egypt, and imagining entering that wilderness and what a shelter of peace and security and safety would mean. Let's continue together on page 161. Give us a place to rest, Adonai our God. Bring us into shelter in the soft, long evening shadows of your truth. For with you are true protection and safety, and in your presence are acceptance and gentle love. Watch over us as we go forth. Prepare for us as we return. Spread over us your shelter of peace, over all we love, over our Jerusalem and yours. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom, aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. We continue on page 162.
Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
We rise together for the tefillah, which begins on page 164. Adonai sefatai tiftachu fi tehillatcha. Adonai, open my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avoteinu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor, Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vekonei Hakol, Vezocher Chasdei Avot B'imahot, Umevi Geula Lifnei B'neihem, Lema'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Chozer U'Moshiach U'Magen. Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Vezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh Hakol. Atah Rav Le'Hoshia, Morid atah, Mechakel Im Bechesed, Mechayeh Hakol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim verofei cholim, Umatir asurim. Hayot HaKol. Baruch Atah Adonai Mechayeh HaKol. Atah Kadosh v'Shimcha Kadosh. U'Kadoshim Kol Yom Ye'alelucha Selah. Baruch Atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh. We continue with the prayers of the prayer book, or the prayers of our heart, and in the prayer book to remember that there are special inserts on page 174, standing or sitting as is your custom.
There's a system. Adonai, Suri, Adonai, Suri, Vegoali, Adonai, Suri, Adonai, Suri, Vegoali.
Go inside your heart,
just be. Go inside your heart and see what it wants, what it needs, what it yearns when you breathe. Go inside your heart and see.
May the word
of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be kind. Be true, may they be acceptable to you, oh my rock, and my redeemer.
ask that the words of our mouth, the meditations of our heart be acceptable. And then we ask for healing. We say, Amisha Berach Lecholim. We bring with us those who need more, those we're holding in our hearts. There was a time, not too long ago, when we read these names out loud. But because we are live streamed, we want to safeguard people's privacy. I know I've heard questions, why don't we read the names? I miss it too. But it's important that people feel okay with saying they'd like to be on, or a loved one to be on the healing list without having it broadcast to whomever. As we sing the Misha Berach on page 371, it's here somewhere, I promise. Let's remember to hold our loved ones in our hearts. Whether we say a name out loud or not, it doesn't necessarily matter. Our hearts, we just said, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable. These are the meditations of our hearts when we hold people there. Page 371.
Misha Berach Avotenu Mikor Habracha Imotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our life a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misha Berach Imotenu Mikor Habracha Le'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shleima, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
May God swiftly send a refuah. Shabbat Shalom. Chag Sameach. So I thought we'd do something a little bit different tonight. We celebrate Pesach with a lot of traditions. I was just talking with Sue about brisket versus chicken. What does your family serve? I remember as a child, we always had chicken. I remember as a child, one year, we went to somebody else's house, not our family. We alternated, my parents, my aunt and uncle, every other year. But it was the same. And they served brisket and borscht. I was heartbroken. how could I sit through a service, the whole Seder, without matzo ball soup coming at the end? It was just like I was ready to go home right at the beginning when I saw that. What, borscht? Everybody has traditions. I was thinking about, we were talking about traditions and the different way that Seders are led. Again, when I was a child, it was led a certain way. My father led the Seder, even when it was at my aunt and uncle's house. I was the youngest for 27 years. No kidding. And did the 4 questions. But as a child, I would practice in my bedroom. I would be very, very nervous. Every year, my family, every year, terribly nervous. It was sort of, this is the impression I get. A lot of this, I see nods, yes. The singing was a lot of Avadim Hayinu, Hayinu. It was very joyous, right? And my mom and I would sit on this side of the table. My dad was over there. And my mom would periodically say, boring. One of my fondest memories of Seder as a child. It wasn't until I got older that I realized that the Seder is alive. It's like Torah. It is meant to be present. We don't talk about them. We relive exiting Egypt. Because we are. Every year, we have a different Egypt. Every year, we're headed someplace different. And that it was, as I got older, I realized it was okay to be more celebratory and creative. At the beginning, I had a hard time with that. I don't know, maybe some of you echo that feeling. I had a hard time with creativity in the Seder. No, we needed that, right? And then I realized over time that it changed my perspective of what we were doing. I do have to say the food has to stay the same. That I can't, I struggle with being creative with that. My children, grown children, still talk before Seder. Are you making this? Are you making that? Are you going to make enough haroset so I have some to take home? Are you making your matzo ball soup, Mom? I knew that I had arrived when my son said to me, don't tell Nana, my mom, but your soup is better than hers. What? I was like, ah. I knew right then I had arrived. I love the traditions, and I love the discussions, and I love the silly songs and the fun exuberance. And I wonder, what are your traditions? What are your memories? What do you cherish about Pesach? You know, a lot of people will say, what do you like better, Pesach or Thanksgiving, right? I know, oh, wow, I see several. Right, Pesach. Pesach, because it's not just good food. It's, the meal is the story. It's a story, it's our story. So I would like to hear from you all. Take a moment. Think about what you do, what you cherish, what's meaningful for you, perhaps what you miss. Because this is our other family. And it's nice to share those traditions and maybe pass them along.
Hi there, good evening.
Why don't you introduce yourself?
Sue Schooley, and I'm on the board, and I've been a member, oh my gosh, like 30 years. Oh, but I'm only 31. No, I'm going to tell a funny story, maybe funny, or at least to me, and then a tradition that we had when I was growing up that I still do, and my boys are grown. So my funny story was, I was also the youngest, and we went to either my grandparents or my uncle, and I remember my uncle did the exact one you're talking about. But being the youngest and being about 7 years old, there were how many glasses of wine? 4. And they only drank wine, and no one was paying attention, and I was about 7 or 8, and yes, I had 4 glasses of wine. And somewhere around midnight when they finished, I was under the table with the dog sound asleep. So me and Butchie, I was just telling someone that story today, that's what I remember. But my grandfather used to give me the Eisenhower dollars. Do you guys, and I still, well, I'm almost out of mine because I saved mine, and then when my boys, and we do the Seder at our house every year, and we're interfaith, so I do the Seder. And it's a 15-minute one, 16 if people are interrupting me, and which that doesn't get to happen too often. But anyways, they all get an Eisenhower dollar. And so I've been doing it, and my sons are going to be 27 and 30, and this is the first year we're going to have the next generation. And, well, it's not mine. Goldberg, yeah, Jackson, little Jackson. First, he'll be 1. And anyway, so even the older kids, this will be the last year that the young adults will get their Eisenhower dollar. And so I've been doing it for 30 years with my kids, and my grandfather did it when I was little. So for the finding the Afikomen, and they barter, and everybody gets an Eisenhower dollar from me.
I don't think that's something we can all duplicate, though, because I don't have any Eisenhower. Oh, you can get me something.
My name is Steve Orkand, and I've been a member for 44 years. Anyways, I come from the opposite situation where my family did the 15-minute Seder, if that. And that was primarily because there was a favorite uncle who started to look at his watch and get, if it goes too long, he's not a happy uncle, and he made his views known. So when I grew up and was no longer at home, my wife and I, we had to decide what we wanted to do. So we sort of picked and chose between various Haggadot and found prayers that really appealed to us and created our own Seder. So that's another alternative to consider.
Hi, I'm Jason Weiner. I think I've been a member here about 13 years. So we also created our own Seder, but we did it when the kids were very, very small, and we were inviting over lots of families with little kids as well. So our Seder has been for years, all these kids songs, I'm a Little Teapot, things like that. And as the kids have gotten older, and I have 2 teenagers now, they complain every year, why are we doing the Seder with these songs? Why do we have to be the kids one? And yet I know if we changed anything, they would probably be very upset. And that includes the song that goes to Let It Go from Frozen. But we did do one extra thing this year, which is the Religious Action Center of California has climate change as their big campaign right now, as does the National Religious Action Center. And at their recommendation, we put ice cubes on our Seder plate as a way to remind us that, we're in a world of climate change, and that as time goes by, you can watch it happen. Yeah, exactly.
That's powerful. Anybody else? I'll toss. You can jump for it.
Yes, I need to stand. Hi, I'm Emma Gluckman. I've been a member over 40 years. I can't believe that. Yeah, I was a baby when I joined. Yeah, sorry. My parents were, my family was Jewish, but my family was completely non-observant. I grew up in Detroit, and there were lots of Jews, but we did absolutely nothing. So when I grew up, I came here, and I fell in love with the temple and Judaism, and I had a bat mitzvah when I was 23 here with Lester, and I met wonderful people, and I married a non-Jew, but he has always been supportive. We got married here, we've raised our daughter Jewish, and she works here now, so I think we did a good job. But when she was 5, I decided that I wanted her to have seders. So I found the Winbrandts, who some of you may know. They started coming to they invited us, or me when I was single, and then they invited us as a couple, and then I started inviting them. I took over the work. And they had a Haggadah that Fred used to use, and I got a Haggadah from Michael Shermer's son David, and I got a Haggadah from Jubelong online, and I've sort of mixed and mashed and just combined everything. And so we sing lots of silly songs, and we enjoy, and I invite Jews and non-Jews because I have friends of all, and everybody has a good time. And I end up making vegetarian soup a lot because I have a lot of vegetarians who come, but I always make brisket. It's Petra's recipe. I make Petra Winbrandt's recipe for brisket. I make my own matzo ball soup. I make matzo crack. Everyone knows what matzo crack is, which is like the chocolate caramelized, like on the matzah with peanuts and stuff. People have different names, but people call it. I brought some for the oneg. It's the leftover from my house because I cannot have it in my house. So there's some matzah crack for the oneg. But, sometimes I order a cake from Freeport Bakery. They have a wonderful flourless cake. So I ordered a cake this year. But then on the Seder plate, the Jubelong Haggadah added a couple symbols which I think are lovely. So we added an orange, which is for LGBTQ. And then also I added olives for Ukraine. So I've added those symbols over the last couple years. Well, according to the Jubelong Haggadah, the orange is for LGBTQ. So maybe it means something else too. I don't know, but that's what I read it was for. So we've added more symbols.
Hi, I'm Elise Ginsberg, and if we're talking memberships, I think it's about 23 years, which is amazing to me. Not as long as some people, but I'm actually thinking more about what it takes to make a Seder plate and what we had done over the years with our family in developing what's on a Seder plate, not just other symbols, but how we make the traditional stuff that goes on it. And I was lucky enough to have the use of, as a little kid, my great-grandmother's wooden chopping bowl. And I would make the haroset. That was always my job, was to chop the apples and add the nuts and the cinnamon and everything to it until it became this huge ball of appley, cinnamony goodness, right? And I would be on my little step stool on the counter with the metal chopper in this bowl going crazy over all of this stuff. And I still have the chopping bowl. So that's part of a family tradition, I guess, is just the vessel that things are made in makes it special. And I got that in my heart as a child. And then I also have very special memories. I'm going to call out my mom for her maror making ability. Because she would take actual horseradish and whoosh, kitchen overload, right? Shred it. And I have distinct memories of her short little mom on her step stool chopping horseradish. And then she discovered, ooh, the blender can work. But she would put on goggles. So picture short mom in her kitchen with her blender making huge amounts of noise with this horseradish root and adding, how much whatever liquid she needed to add to it to make it just the right consistency with her goggles like this was an event. So if that's part of our family tradition, it's humorous, I guess, the preparation, and also my job as a child, which I still do it this way. Salt water had to taste like the strongest tears you could ever come up with. So I would pour in, I don't know, probably half a cup of salt until it was like opaque liquid. And people would dip their carpus and go, whoa, because it's supposed to feel like tears, right? So I guess putting together a Seder plate and the preparation for it, that's part of the importance of this holiday. Isn't just going through the Seder, but everything that it takes to get those symbols ready and the joy in collecting all of that and making that Seder plate happen.
I have a story. Oh, go ahead. I'll go.
Oh, wait.
C'est moi.
Wait,
Okay,
Maxine,
so my...
wait.
Oh, Maxine.
Wait, yeah.
No, speak.
You want to say something? Okay. This is the short, goggled woman.
Maxine, stand up.
Maxine.
Yes, yeah,
Did you bring your goggles?
no, I
No.
did not bring my goggles. And I, like you, grew up in a home where there we go. My father had grown up in the Lower East Side in Manhattan and was strongly non-observant. And so I was about 9 years old when my parents decided, yeah, we should take her to a Seder. And we went to Uncle Bill. Uncle Bill was the person who had introduced my parents years before. We went to their house, and because I was then the youngest person, and their son Billy was so relieved not to have to go for the afikomen anymore, what's an afikomen? But Billy kind of guided me, and he said, it's going to be behind those cushions. Yeah, and so I said, and Uncle Bill said, okay, I'm glad you found the afikomen. I need to buy it back from you. What would you like? And I'm looking at my parents, and my mother's whispering, nothing too big. And so, Bill was an optometrist, so I figured, sunglasses should be easy for him. So I said, I want a pair of sunglasses, and my mother gasped. She knew he was going to make it with a prescription lens and blah, blah, blah. But that was my first Seder.
So my story's kind of like Maxine's. My name's Michael Herscher, and I've been a member for 40 years. And this is the first congregation I've ever belonged to, and I'm 72. So if you can do the math, there were 32 years of no Judaism, or at least no organized Judaism. And my parents were pretty left of center, and they didn't like organized religion in general, but they liked the Seder because it's all about freedom. And every year my father would write another Haggadah, and it would be all full of his poetic renderings. He was particularly fond of writing Passover patter songs to the tune of Gilbert and Sullivan. So like the modern Major General does Passover. But that's my recollection, and we have continued that tradition by not only every year at our family Seder, recognizing all of the freedom struggles that are currently going on anywhere in the world, and every year, tragically, some group of people are being more deprived of freedom than the year before, and so we always, our hearts reach out to them, and then during the meal, we try to come up with as polemical a question as we can for people to think about while they're choking down their brisket. So it's a religious holiday even for atheists.
Yes, it's a political holiday. And we have one more. Now you're standing up. It's so good to see you. Go for it, Doris.
Well, my name is Doris Patel Morris. I have belonged here over 60 years, not as long as the Schwartzine. One of my favorite Passover stories is I used to cook with Robin Applebaum, and maybe Jane Orcan remembers. She and I made the second night Seder here at the temple. And we didn't do everything. We had our mothers, well, my mother, her mother-in-law, Dolly Schwartz, Clara Lauer, smoking, everybody smoking, and tap dancing around in the high heels, and we made a Seder for 250 people. We set the tables, we cooked the food, we served the food, and we did not have a second night Seder ourselves because I come from a very Reformed German Jewish family. Our Seder was eating the food. There was no blessing, there was no story, there was no nothing until I came to Sacramento, and I married my husband who had been a rabbinic student, and that's when I began to learn. So we can all learn at a later age in life. I think I was 19 or 20. But my very favorite Seder ever, and I think I put this on Facebook, was in 2023 when you couldn't be with anybody. And I'm sitting at a table, my dining room table by myself, with all the things that I love, that I always use, the dishes and the glasses and the flatware and so on. And my children were on a Zoom call or a FaceTime, and I'm sitting at my table with the telephone in front of me, and my son-in-law did the Seder, the whole Seder. It was, I get a little verklempt, as they say, thinking about it. It was probably my very favorite Seder because it was just the four of us, three across the table on their phone, me on my phone looking at them, and it was wonderful. So it doesn't matter how you do it, as long as you do it and tell the story. That's my sermon.
I love it. Beautiful. You know, I am struck by the sort of the metaphor of the stories, the memories, and the way that it mirrors the actual telling of the Pesach story. From the preparations, it makes me think of how we prepared to run away, to escape, to the learning over time, which is exactly what we did. We left Egypt not even as a cohesive people, and we had a lot of learning ahead of us. To the humor, because there always has to be humor, and essential to everything, the food. The food. We have a holiday where the food is not so much about the flavor as the purpose, that we eat matzah. I mean, it's pretty profound. I love hearing all of your stories. I hope you continue to share them because you're not just expressing what's happened in your family, but we're all a link in a very, very long chain. We are all a link in the generation after generation after generation who shares this experience. There's a reason that we say we all left Egypt. We all stood at Sinai. And we're reliving that each year. Thank you, everybody. It was really beautiful. I would like to invite up our president, Josh Mastronardi, to deliver some profound words of announcement.
So I remember Seders growing up as a kid seeming interminable, but they were actually pretty lively. And when I started making my own Seders, I looked through and I really couldn't figure out much that I wanted to leave out. So we ended up kind of coming up with a nice mix that keeps it moving, but we cover most of the important blessings and prayers and readings. And so thank you, Cantor, for that. That was a great chance to hear both your and everybody else's Passover stories. And thank you, Cantor and Michael, for an awesome service. Tonight after services, join us for the oneg. And I was going to make a snarky comment about coming here just for the Passover oneg. But I actually went back there, and there's some really good food, better than anything that's on my Passover counter at home. So I'm looking forward to it. So join us for that. And don't forget to use the waste stations where you can separate out recycling, organics, and trash. Tomorrow morning, 9:30 a.m. Torah study on Zoom, 10:30 a.m. Kavanah Shabbat, in person and on Zoom. It's going to be a nice, lively, traditional, and communal prayer service. For this and next week, the office hours are a little bit different because of Passover. So check the Hadashot if you're thinking of calling or coming in. Next Wednesday at 10 a.m. is the Passover Yizkor service. Next Friday night is Second Shabbos with a 6 o'clock Mishpacha Family Shabbat and a 7:30 evening service. And then between those, they greet and eat, bring your own dinner, and enjoy community. And unlike tonight, it won't be Passover, so there'll be some different things to have post for the oneg. The Federation on Sunday, April 16th, the Federation is presenting the annual Yom HaShoah commemoration here at CBI at 6:30 p.m. The Women of B'nai Israel on Thursday, April 20th are hosting a Mahjong Fun Day lunch and play, which sounds interesting, in the morning. And the Lifelong Learning Committee, and I'm sure I'll be corrected if I say this wrong, is presenting on Saturday, April 22nd, Judaism and Entertainment, Jewish Singers and Songwriters of American Protest Music with our very own Michael Hirscher. So that's the goings-on this month, and moving on into May, there'll be lots more. Check out the Hadashot Kalenu for all the goings-on. Now I'd like to ask any members of the Board of Trustees, past presidents, or committee chairs to stand and introduce yourselves.
I'm Steve Orkhand, a past president.
You met me before and I haven't changed. Sue Schooley, I'm on the board, and if you have or are a college student, come see me after I run the College Care Package program.
Hi, I'm Jason Wiener, Social Action Chair. Is there anyone else?
I'm Michael Hirscher, again. I'm chair of the Lifelong Learning Committee.
All right, thanks everybody. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Toda Rabba. We return to our service for our closing prayers. Please rise for the Aleinu, which begins on the bottom half of page 586. Aleinu leshabeach ladon hakol, latet gedula leyotzer breshit, shelo asanu kegoyei haratzot, velo samanu kemishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, vegor aleinu kechol hamonam, va'anachnu korim umishkachavim umodin lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu shehu noteh shamayim v'yosed haaretz umoshav yakaro b'shamayim mima'al ushchinatu zo b'govei meromim hu Eloheinu Einod emet malkeinu efes ulato ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבותה אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל ועל הארץ מתחת עינות. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. Please be seated. Our thoughts now turn towards loved ones who are no longer with us. And it is with great sorrow that we announce the recent passing of Paula Weissman. And Jonathan, if you're joining us today online, I'm so sorry, our congregation is sorry. Really, the larger community is sorry for the loss of your beloved cousin, who had quite a history, quite a life of hardship and sorrow and pain through the Holocaust, but brightness and light and beauty through the rest of her life. And we send our condolences to you and your family. We also remember with sorrow the recent passing of Michael Mitzi, the beloved husband of Mary Mitzi, beloved father of John and Charles Mitzi, beloved father-in-law of Karen Mitzi, and the beloved grandfather of Sarah David and Charlie Mitzi. We also sadly remember the recent passing of Irving Jeffrey Oppenheim, the beloved father of Dan Oppenheim and beloved father-in-law of Robin Bellows. Zichronam livracha, may their memories forever be a blessing. We also remember loved ones who passed away at this time in years past. We remember Ethel Applebaum, William Applebaum, Richard Archibald Sr., Oliver Baer, June Bellinson, Rebecca Bloomberg, Marshall Bosches, Hannah Brandis, Dawn Brittain, Susie Carroll, Saul Sursansky, Marilyn Colton, Paul David, Tom Dula, Trudy Eisen, Dorothy Ehrenberg, Elsie Estroff, Joseph Falk, Ruth Fisher, Robin Garten, Elizabeth Geiger, Michael Gladstein, Saul Gorfain, Minna Gottesman, Esther Gervis, Leah Herpy, Felicia Israel, Lester Cantor, Andy Kovnick, Richard Levy, Robert Levin, Rose Linker, Louise Lipman, Jean May, Arnold Mayer, Ann Michaels, Sally Moss, Louis Nessman, David Nissenson, Maury Pereira, Jamie Reines, Melvin Riff, Burton Rogoff, Art Rosenberg, Yetta Rosenberg, Devera Rothschild, Oscar Schmidt, Harriet Schwartz, Sonny Silverman, Judith Solov, Shirley Sosnick, Evelyn Winkle, and Carl Zalkind. If there are names of loved ones for whom you're saying Kaddish tonight, please feel free to say their names out loud as my gaze meets yours. If you're saying Kaddish tonight for a loved one, I'd like to invite you to please rise so that the congregation can join me in these words of comfort. Hamakom yenechem etchem b'toch sha'ar avalei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. May God comfort you among the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. We rise as a congregation to remember those who have gone before us with the Mourner's Kaddish on page 598. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah be'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabbah mevorach le'olam lo me'omaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudsha b'richu le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata damiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imramav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. May the source of peace and peace to all who mourn, and comfort to all who are bereaved, as together we say, amen. Please be seated. Michael, what do you have for us tonight?
Song.
A song. I'm ready.
Freedom doesn't come like a morning in spring, doesn't appear like the newborn day. Freedom is a hard-won thing. You've got to work for it, fight for it, day and night for it. And every generation has to win it again. Pass it on to your children, mothers. Pass it on to your children, brothers. You've got to work for it, fight for it, day and night for it. Pass it on to your children, pass it on. Freedom doesn't come like a morning in spring, doesn't come down like the gentle rain. Freedom is a hard-won thing. You've got to work for it, call for it, stand up tall for it. And every generation has to do it again. Pass it on to your children, mothers. Pass it on to your children, brothers. You've got to work for it, call for it, stand up tall for it. Pass it on to your children, pass it on.
As always, Michael, no pun intended, you hit the right note. It's a good
So,
record.
you got any wine?
Yes, just this. We continue with Rabbi's favorite prayers, the Kiddush and then the Motzi on page 123. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom techilah למקראי קודש, זכר לציאת מצרים, כי בנו בחג אתה ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
Amen.
לחיים
Chayam
ולשלום.
Shalom Urachamim.
Now's the moment I know you've all been waiting for. I know, it's exciting.
Ooh, so flippant. You crack me up.
Yeah, I know. You ready? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Shabbat
Shabbat
shalom.
shalom.
Tevon. Please join us for the oneg in the social hall.